Brothers and sisters, may the Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to the Lord.
When the days for Jesus to be taken up were fulfilled, he resolutely determined to journey to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him. On the way, they entered a Samaritan village to prepare for his reception there, but they would not welcome him, because the destination of his journey was Jerusalem. When the disciples James and John saw this, they asked, "Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to consume them?" Jesus turned and rebuked them, and they journeyed to another village. The Gospel of the Lord. The readings this morning focus on the city of Jerusalem. In the first reading from Zechariah, we still find ourselves in the Babylonian exile, and Zechariah prophesies about a kind of idealized awareness of coming back again to the place where God shows himself in a special way, the return to Jerusalem, and also the opening and the possibility for those outside of the Jewish community to also share in that same glory. And so he makes the point of suggesting that many speaking different tongues will all take hold of every Jew to the edge of his garment and say, "Let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you." And so Jerusalem, ideally, in that first reading, is sort of focused as the place of redemption. In a very different way, the Jerusalem is focused in the gospel is the place of the killing of the prophets. There seem to be, sadly, in the course of Israel's history, many prophets who were rejected, and many of which lost their lives because of their convictions. And in most instances, it always took place and focused with Jerusalem. And so we see Jesus now, as he gets closer to the time of the fulfillment of the redemptive plan, making his way to Jerusalem. And Luke makes the point at the very beginning of this little segment to say, when the days for Jesus to be taken up were fulfilled. And the taken up, of course, is an allusion symbolically to the put on the cross and the cross being raised. And he goes on to suggest that Jesus resolutely determined going to journey to Jerusalem. He's now focused. He's got to get to Jerusalem at all costs. And St. Luke uses, in the course of 10 chapters in his telling of the story of Jesus, the opportunity for this movement towards Jerusalem. It's the time when the disciples are being taught what discipleship means. It's the time when they recognize slowly but surely the cost of discipleship, and that ultimately, resolutely, it means that one must give oneself entirely to it, perhaps even one's own life. Jesus' journey to Jerusalem then is symbolic of the journey every Christian has in his own life. We live in a world today that's very different from the one that at least I initially grew up in, and probably most of us, incredibly different world. It seems that many of the things that we took for granted and always assumed would be there are no longer present. In a world where there seem to be many times real signs of peace and harmony and care and concern for one another, that's all kind of dissipating. And not only the tragedies of all these various climatic changes that are happening, but just the utter hate and evil that seems to be focusing over and over again in the course of our reading the papers each day. In such a scenario, we too must find ourselves resolutely concerned to continue to be that beacon, that light in the midst of a darkening world. It means that sometimes the culture will fight us. It means sometimes our attempt to live out the gospel call will really wear on us, and yet all the more reason that we have to do it. Today then we gather here aware that we can't do it alone. We need the support of one another, and more importantly, we need the support of God's grace. And so as we are nourished at this table at the one place where there's harmony and peace for a few moments, we are reminded that it's up to us, to much as we are able to try to create that harmony and peace in the worlds around us.